For example, Zabud and this Isha, they're letting us use their house, okay, for temple services. And while that is going on, this house is considered set apart. And being that it's set apart, those of us that are members here of the congregation of Yashra'al, we must make sure that we behave ourselves accordingly. First, because this house is set apart. When services are over, we must also conduct ourselves remembering that we are guests in the house. All right, so we have an Ish and an Isha in this house, and we must make sure that our mannerism and how we conduct ourselves in the house is all done according to Torah. That's going to be extremely important. If we find ourselves not able to conduct ourselves doing services or outside of services in a productive way according to the house, we have the Hebrew word tazarak, where that person or persons should be removed from the house. Also now with our personal houses, my personal house, your personal house, make sure that you understand who is coming under or crossing your threshold. Every single body has a vibration, an aura, and a character. We all have characters, all right? And we're all struggling with the dual nature within inside of us. Remember to be respectful in every man's house. Be respectful, because what's happening now is that when you bring negativity to a person's house, that person can leave, and that demonic spirit is still there. Still there. And then what happens now is that all of a sudden you and your Isha now are having problems, and you don't know what's going on. Somebody crossed your threshold, because remember the scriptures talked about, okay, even Ezekiel, let's see Exodus the 12th chapter, is that we were supposed to now put blood on the doorposts. The blood on the doorposts represented that the death angels now would actually fly over your houses, but those who didn't have the blood on the doorposts, those people were killed. So again, our conduct and our behavior, when we walk into this set apart house here, make sure that you're on your best behavior. All right, because everybody has energy. And again, I'm going to say one more time, be careful who you let in your house. Be very, very careful, because people gossip, they slander, there's lies, there are people that come into the house who are arrogant, they're envious of you, rehashing past arguments and scoffing. Those things are a no-no. And again, just tazarat, okay, these things could be left on clothing, your belongings, and your house, in addition to your skin. According to some of the rabbis, tazarat is caused by sin. This makes it a disease like no other. It is part medical condition and part spiritual pathology. I disagree when it talks about, the medical condition, but being that it's coming from the Father, this is all spiritual, okay? And yes.
No, I'm with you.
Oh, okay. Now, I have my notes here. Now, 2 chapters of the book of Leviticus are devoted to the laws of dealing with someone who's afflicted with tazarat. Symptoms described include swelling and whitish red spots on the torso, according to the Torah. When a person saw that he may be coming down with tazarat, he consulted with a priest or a kohen. All right, the word for priest is kohen. Who examined him, diagnosed him, was counterintuitive. A person who has spots covering his whole body was considered infected. Everybody, y'all know the whole thing with Leviticus, where if a person has spots and things like that, you have to see them. Okay, great. All right, so we don't have to go through all of these scriptures here. Who has spots covering his whole body was not considered infected. Someone who was infected could be granted a grace period if they were about to get married. These rules were detailed and explained by the rabbis in the Mishnah and also in the Talmud. So if you're going to read the Mishnah and the Talmud, just read it with discretion, all right? So if you're mature enough to read it, fine, because there's also there's a lot of garbage in there too. Okay, but again, when we look at the Babylonian Talmud, we did have a Talmud, and it just goes into detail explaining now, there's like a commentary, all right? So anyway. But that implies that Tazarot did not operate in the same way as the infectious diseases we're familiar with today. On the other hand, part of the treatment for Tazarot was isolation from the community. So a person now who was a gossiper, a slanderer, a liar, a person who was arrogant, envy, rehashing past arguments, and scoffing, that brought about a different aura and character about the person, and a lot of the time the person's skin would be an indicator that they're a sinful person, or they fit one of these characteristics. And that person now was put outside of the house. So, like for example, remember, I'm sure everybody went through this. When I had any of these attributes when I was growing up, my mother now will put me into isolation, where she would put me not out of the house, but she would say, listen, when you come home from school, you go straight to your room and you can't communicate with the other brothers and sisters and things like that. There's no TV nor anything. Now, the 7 times, what my mother would do, not knowing then, but the punishments usually lasted for 7 days or a whole week. During that 7 times, those 7 days now, what is supposed to happen and actually cleanses you is that you're not reflecting on these attributes that you have. And then after, because my mother, for example, would be the priest. And so after the 7 days was up, did you learn your lesson? And if you learned your lesson, now you can go outside and play. You can watch TV and all these things like that. You can eat dinner with the rest of the family. But do you see how a lot of things that we did or our parents might have been doing, it was scriptural, but not maybe at that time able to find it in scripture? So in order for you not to be part of the community again, the priest would have to look at you or see whether or not you were cleansed or whether or not you still have these qualities in you. Because anything that's going to disturb the household can't be part of the community. Everybody is dealing with that dual nature that's inside of them. All of us. So let's just keep it real. Even Shaul talked about the dual nature that's inside of him that he fights with every single day. And this is that battle that we all face every single day. But the job is now is for the spiritual man to subdue the weaker or that disagreeableness that's inside of every last one of us, all right? We're not going to do that Christian thing, listen, we're struggling here, all right? Or maybe you're not. Me, all right? So whenever I want to do good, okay, evil is right there. It's all about, well, maybe just this one time. Okay. Yeah.
That's why Shaul said in 1 Corinthians 14, the ruach of the prophet is subject to the prophet. Mm-hmm. Because that ruach that's in you is subject to you. Rule that ruach.
Exactly. We have to learn how to do that. We definitely have to learn how to do that. So when we see that disagreeable spirit coming up in us, at some point, with maturity, you say, listen, you know what, baby, right now is not a good time for us to continue with this conversation, because you know what, it's just going to escalate, and then it can get to the point where a shoving match can happen, anything, or you might say something that you might not be able to take back. So it's always important to understand this gossip and slandering, all these things here, this Tazarah. You don't want it to overtake you, because you might have to call 911 or whatever to have somebody removed from the house. So learn how to control. We all must learn how to control our ruach. Let me just read on with this real quick so we can speed it up. So there was concern about the disease spreading from person to person. All right. If Tazarah was confirmed, 3 separate ceremonies were required on 3 different days. The ceremonies were focused on sacrifices and cultic rituals. The affected person had to offer a guilt offering and a sin offering, and the rabbis added requirements for repentance as well. Aside from the chapter dealing with the laws of Tazarah, which is Leviticus, the 13th chapter and 14th chapter, the disease comes up in the narrative parts of the Torah twice, After encountering the burning bush, Moses worries that the elders of Yashra'al won't believe him. Elohim gives Moses 2 signs, turning his staff into a snake and then back to a staff, and turning his hand white with Tazarah, which is leprosy, and then back to normal again. Exodus, in the book of Shemot, the 4th chapter, verses 1 through 8. Just to speed this up here a little bit. Miriam, Moses' sister, is afflicted with Tazarat, as she and Aaron criticizes Moses' choice of the Cushite wife, which is the book of Numbers, the 12th chapter. Now, Aaron wasn't stricken with Tazarat, but Miriam was. Anybody know why? Miriam was stricken with Tazarat. And we're not talking about leprosy as we know it today. It was because of her mouth. Okay? Second guessing Moses here. Okay, so we have to learn how to bridle the tongue. All right? Though Moses and Aaron pleaded for her to be healed immediately, she was to be isolated from the camp for 7 days to reflect now on what you just did. When I speak to Moses, I don't speak to him like any other man, in dreams and visions and all that stuff like that. When I speak to Moses, I talk to Moses or Moshe here, face to face, pani, face to face. All right? Other later biblical characters who suffer from Tazarat are Naaman, a commander of the Armenian army, which is 2 Kings, what we just read, the 5th chapter. And after interacting with him, Gehazi, a servant of the prophet Elisha, comes down with Tazarat as well. 4 men with Tazarat pillaged the Armenian camp after it was abandoned. 2 Kings, the 7th chapter, verses 3 to 10, we read that. King Azariah suffered from Tazarat, which is in 2 Kings, the 15th chapter, verse 5. We didn't read that, but we're not going to read that because of time. As did King Uzziah, 2 Chronicles, the 16th chapter, verses 20 to 23. He also suffered from this leprosy. Speed it up here a little bit. Traditionally, Jewish thinkers have understood Tazarat in a variety of ways. The Talmud, the 7 reasons one might be afflicted with the disease: gossip, murder, perjury, all the things that we just mentioned. Let's see. So that's pretty much about it. I can email or have a copy for this for everybody next week. Hebrews, the 4th chapter, verse 12. Hebrews, the 4th chapter, verse 12. If we can have Solomon, please. If you can read that for us. The book of Hebrews, the 4th chapter, verse 12. Hebrews, the 4th chapter, verse 12. Hebrews. Hebrews is before, after James, it's before Philemon. You got Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, James, 1 Peter's.
Over here it is. Hebrews 4, verse 12. For the word of Yahuah is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even the divine asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart.
Wow. So anybody know why the question is, why is the sword of Yahuah 2-edged, sharp on both sides? Talking about the sword here. The reason why is because the sword can be used to protect. It can also be used to execute. All right, so when the father is swinging that sword, it's with judgment. It can also be used for protection. And let's go into that a little bit. The book of Yahuah, the 12th chapter, and I'm going to read that because I think everybody pretty much knows where we're going with all of this now. 33, 12 and 33. It says, either make the tree good and his fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and his fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by his fruits. So as a man speaketh, this is what actually was inside of his heart. All right. O generation of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. All right? So if you really want to know what a person is really thinking, piss them off or give them a little truth serum. All right? And they'll let you know how they really feel about you. All right? O generation of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. A good man out of the good treasures of his heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasures bringeth forth evil things. But I say unto you that every idle, so we have to be very careful, Mishmachah, but I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. You better be careful. You better be careful. Like the song says, you better be careful what you do to me. So let's be mindful on how we communicate with one another. Again, everybody has their own personality, and let's try to learn how to deal with one another. Not everybody does things the same way. There's things that I do that you might not do. There's rules and regulations of your house, rules and regulations of your house, but it might not be applicable in my house. But we're still Torah followers. I mean, you'll come to my house and say, oh, my Kasadaba watches horror movies, or Kasadaba does X, Y, and Z, and you might not do that in your house. So let's learn how to respect one another, because when we begin to gossip and slander and lies, these things will come back in the day of judgment for us or against us. Verse 37, for by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words shalt thou be condemned. It can go both ways. 1 Peter 3 and 10. If we can get Jonathan, Yahuah, if you can read that for me, please. 1 Peter 3 and 10. We almost done Mishpachah. 1 Peter 3 and 10. Because we're all talking about end-time prophecies. We're talking about a Mishpachah. We're talking about building together. But we can't build together if we can't get along with one another. That's going to be very important before we do anything. Before we leave anywhere, do anything, we must learn how to get along with one another. 1 Peter 3 and 10.
1 Peter 3 and 10. For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil, and his lips that they speak no guile.
For he that will love life, and we all love life, right? Torah. We all love life. Life is Torah. And see good days. If he wants these things, then let him refrain his tongue from evil things, so that should be easy. And his lips that they speak no guile. Guile is associated with the word speech. Be careful how you talk and be mindful of one another. We all have feelings. All of us. So let's try to be mindful how we conduct ourselves with one another. Let's go to the book of Yahuah, and the word that we want to look at here is the word guile. Guile, guile, guile. 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 The book of Yahuah, the book of John. If we can get our sister, I guess amnesia started to set in with me. Akuti, if you can.
Zahava.
Yes, if you can read that for me, please, all right? It takes a little while, but it starts to click for me a little bit. So we're talking about guile here. 147.
Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and
Who?
said,
Who did? Nathanael saw who? Jesus, what happened here? I'm only messing with you. Mashiyach.
Okay.
I'm only messing with you. Okay, you can start 47 again.
Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said,
Okay, I hear you. Okay.
Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile.
Okay, so that word guile is very important. So we know this Jesus here to be Yahusha Mashiyach. Okay, so the word that we're looking at is the word guile. The word guile is to be without guile. It means to be free of deceit, cunning, and dishonesty, as Adam and Ku'ua were. However, Nakash, the adversary, brought beguileness. So we have the word guile. And I apologize for what's going on with page 2. All right, I kind of wrote kind of close to the edge there. But so we have the word guile and beguiled. So again, however, Nakash, the adversary, brought beguiledness to Ku'ua, or Eve. She brought in deceit, cunning, and dishonesty. All right? So when the Mashiyach now is speaking to Neyhemyah, he said, behold, an Israelite indeed, who there is no guile. So his conduct and his mannerism was Tomio to the Mashiyach. Okay, it was all good. Beguiled is a mixture. Bereshit, the third chapter, Mr. Carr. And I appreciate everybody's patience here tonight, but I just thought it very important that we understand or understand what's going on. Now, Genesis, Bereshit, the third chapter, verse 1. Now the serpent, okay, the word serpent is Nakash. When we look at his characteristics, is everything that we had talked about, the slander, the gossip, and everything like that. That's what he's into. So the word serpent is Nakash. It's the serpent, and he's a whisperer. He's an enchanter, practice divinations. So all these things here makes up a disagreeable nature. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. You can look up subtle on your free time. Of the field which the father of Yahuah had made, and he said unto the woman, have Elohim said you should not eat of every tree of the garden. Go down to verse 13. Watch what happened. And the serpent of Yahuah said unto the woman, what is it that thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent has what? Beguiled. So there was now a mixture that was now found in both Adam and his Isha. So the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. Psalms, the 32nd chapter, verse 2. If we can get Zabud, if you can read that for me, please. Psalms 32 and 2. We're going to bring it on home. 32 and 2.
Baruch is the man unto whom Yahuah imputed not iniquity.
Mm-hmm.
And in whose spirit there is no guile.
No guile. Just as there was no guile found in Nathan. Okay, there was a time when there was no guile found in Adam and his Isha. But when they played Russian roulette with the adversary, we have a mixture, and that brought about death. And every man will be measured, okay, according to every word that he speaks. Psalms 34:13. Zabud, please. 34:13.
Keep thy tongue from evil and thy lips from speaking guile.
Right, and so what is guile? Guile is, again, this record, it is gossip, slander, lies, arrogance, envy, rehashing past arguments, and scoffing. Those things are considered guile. Let it go. We now have the book of James, the third chapter, 2 to 18. If we can get Okoti, Catherine, to bring us on home, and we'll be done.
James chapter 3, verse 2.
Mm-hmm.
For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man.
So that was important, verse 2. For in many things we offend all. So all of us have some cleaning up to do. All right? Read on.
If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body.
Wow.
Behold, we put bits in horses' mouth, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask Yaakov, Brother James here. And we begin to look at these things here. We begin to look at the hem of a ship. We begin to look at the bridle that's put into the horse's mouth, because we can actually control the horse because of this little bit that's in his mouth. He goes to the left or to the right. A big ship, as big as a ship is, we have this helm, and the, what do you call the guys that drive this? The captain of the ship, right? It's the captain of the ship. Yeah, the captain. Yeah. What do you call the thing that you drive the airplane? Is that a steering wheel? What is that? A yoke. Okay. And so with that yoke, you can turn the plane to the left or to the right, have it dip down or go up. But it's such a little member, okay? And it can be a situation of life and death as you're driving or flying this plane. And I just found it interesting, real interesting. Read on, please.
James 3, verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
Even so, the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth.
The tongue can do all of that. You know what? The tongue has no bones. It has no bones, but it can break a person's bones by what you say, but it has no bones. Read on.
Verse 6. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature.
Wow.
And it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beast, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind.
We can do all of that. All of that we can do. All right?
But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Therewith bless we Yahuah, even the Father, and therewith curse we with men, which are made after the similitude of Yahuah.
So we use this same mouth to give praises and alms to the Father, and you turn around, you know good mother this and none, you can kiss this, and yeah, I mean, with the same mouth. Kindle the fire. But you guys like, hey?
Well, nah, because this just brought back a memory. You know, I always just, when I read this, I thought about back in the 90s when we used to be out there, we used to bless, and then the next thing you know, we start putting out the curses facing the facing the east, and then start cursing people. You know what I'm saying? You know? Yeah.
It's crazy. It is really, really crazy. Where and this is what happens if you piss a person off. They'll tell you, listen, you know what? Those scriptures go out the window. There you go. Listen, you just hurt my feelings now. All right.
Yo.
All that Israelite stuff, I ain't trying to hear that no more. All right. I'm about to let you have it. You're going to see the true me now. I'm like, oh, really? The true you now. Oh, so everything else now was a facade. Okay. So again, let's learn how to control that tongue there, all right? Well, don't bring that out of me, I'm telling you, because you don't want to see that side of me, all right? So let's learn how to bridle the tongue and make sure that we stay in one accord with the Father here, all right? Because, we all do it, but let's try to learn how to control that our ruach, all right?
I can say I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah,
we all, we don't say, throw out the Torah. We don't do that.
Right.
But sometimes, that disagreeableness can surface. But the thing now is that a righteous person would be like, he can check it real quick before it gets out of hand.
Right.
And it comes with maturity, being in this walk for so long. But read on.
Verse 10. Out of the same mouth proceedeth baruching and cursing. My brother, these things ought not be so.
Okay.
Does a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter?
No, of course not.
Can the fig tree, my brother, bear olive berries, either a vine, figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh.
You're going to either do one or the other.
Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom.
Right, hallelujah. So it means nothing, okay, for you to take the back road, all right? And this is just a joke, and at the same time, I'm serious, all right? But again, it's a joke. Man, I can't stand folks. That folks restaurant, I don't like folks, bro. That food was horrible. I wanted to go to Smoky Bones, Smoky Bones, or a barbecue spot. But I said, listen, you know what? I'm going to play the back, and we'll go out to folks. because the main thing is that we got the chance to eat together as a mishpachah.
Right.
But again, it was just a joke. What I'm just trying to share here is that sometimes that we might have to, you know, okay, baby, you know what? I don't really want to eat there. And just like as Abu said, who in the world goes to a restaurant to eat meatloaf? you know, so.
Nobody got it.
Oh, right. And so, you know,
But you did say that.
yeah, exactly. But again, I'm just saying that as a joke.
Right.
But showing the bigger picture is that sometimes, you know what, in our relationships, you know what, we might want to do something, and Isha might want to do another thing. You know what? Listen, we did it your way last week or the week before that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it my way this week. You know, no problem. We all good because this is.
Because she forgets.
Yeah, hallelujah. Everything is Tobio.
Last time.
No, yeah, we did it your way last time. Now we're having Torah casserole.
Hallelujah. Excuse me. Okay, let's finish her up, Mr. McCall. It's almost 10.
But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish.
Right, devilish, because that's exactly what it is. I mean, in the Aramaic, it said it calls it says a demon, you know. So read on.
For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace.
Hallelujah. And when I did here, I wanted to kind of do a better job on the.
I can't believe that's what that was.
Yeah, I said let me take my time and do something a little bit better than I did the last time here with the menorah and the two witnesses. And so again, the characteristics that we're supposed to have according to Scripture, we did in Isaiah 11 chapter verse 2, is that we should have the same attributes as the Mashiyach. The Mashiyach is the menorah. Actually, the body is the menorah, and the candlesticks or the nar or the naruth in Hebrew is counsel, might, understanding, knowledge, wisdom, and fear of the Mashiyach. And Mishpachah, that is tonight's lesson. I pray that we were all able to gather something from it, as I definitely was when I was reading this. I'm going to have to, do some things with myself and learning how to be more